Hey guys, my name's David and welcome back to Unbound. We are currently just north of Terlingua, Texas to visit Big Bend National Park. And when we were planning to come down here, we had a problem. The RV parks inside of the national park, like, is typical, were all reserved for a very long time. Just everything inside of the national park, no options to be able to camp in the national park. And so we thought, no problem, we'll just boondock somewhere like we always do, out on BLM land or in a national forest if there was one nearby. But then that's a problem in itself too, because Texas doesn't really have any federal land. There's a little bit here and there, but very little BLM land, very little national forest. So that wasn't an option either. So I was like, okay, well, what's next? Boondockers Welcome, maybe? So I checked out Boondockers Welcome. Nothing near Big Bend National Park. And so we were at a loss of how we were gonna camp. All of the private campgrounds too were booked up. This is an extremely busy time for Big Bend National Park because the weather is kind of perfect in this part of the United States right now. And also it's early March, so everyone is out camping for spring break, visiting Big Bend National Park. We were able to find a couple of private RV parks online, but they were pretty expensive, and with our 2 rigs, it just wasn't really feasible for us to stay here for a week or two, paying $50, $60 a night for camping. And that's for each rig, so $100 to $120 a night. Little too pricey. This is a little too rich for our blood, so we just for a little while, we were like, oh, well, what are we gonna do? We really wanna see Big Bend National Park. We're in the area already to check out the solar eclipse on April 8th. So yeah, we were kind of at a loss. But after hunting around a whole bunch online, we came across Hipcamp. And I wanna make it very clear that this video is not sponsored by Hipcamp, Boondockers Welcome. It's not sponsored by anyone. I'm just gonna explain to you guys our experiences using Hipcamp, staying at this exact site. We found Hipcamp, and it's very similar to Boondockers Welcome, except you don't pay a subscription. You just pay for the nights that you stay at the camp, and those nightly rates are set by the owner of the area. It's a way to, connect private camping owners or people like where we're at right now. They just have a plot of land that, they've got 21 acres in the middle of the Texas desert, and they're like, hey, we could allow people to camp on this, to boondock on our land, and make some money off of it. And so whereas with Boondockers Welcome, you pay a yearly fee, it's $79 a year, and then you can camp for free. With Hipcamp, yeah, you just pay a nightly rate like any other RV park or campground. Dang, okay, it was overcast, the sun's starting to come out a little bit, so it's getting brighter. I need my sunglasses. All right, much better. I don't have to squint at the camera constantly now. But yeah, through Hipcamp's website, they also have an app, of course, but we were able to connect with the owners of this property, and we saw that they were only charging $10 a night, you guys, to stay here, which we couldn't beat that. And so yeah, we contacted them through the Hipcamp app, because you got to send them a message just to let them know you want to stay there, and your request to camp there has to be approved before you can just swing on in. So we requested to stay here. They got back to us, and yeah, everything was fine. They just gave us directions on how to get here, because there's no cell signal this far out in the middle of nowhere, Texas desert. Hipcamp does charge a little bit of an extra fee, just, of course, so they can make a little extra money. But it was only $10 for the entire stay here, and we're staying for about a week and a half. So yeah, I don't think that's too bad for a, finder's fee, if you want to think of it that way. But we were pretty surprised at all the options. There was, $10 a night camping, $20 a night camping, $30 a night camping. And as you can imagine, the more expensive ones are closer to the park, like right outside the park, or they have hookup options or water options or dump options. But we just don't need any of that. You guys know that we boondock all the time. We're pretty self-sufficient when it comes to power, water, and we have massive holding tanks too, so none of that really mattered. We just wanted the cheapest spot as close to Great Basin National Park as we could get. And then the owners of this property did stop by just to say hi to us. I'm sure it was just to check us out, get a vibe, make sure everything was on the up and up, because, we are staying on their private property, but they were super nice. It was a young couple that purchased this land, to kind of develop it as their retreat. They fell in love with the area here near Terlingua, and this was just their way of, making a little extra money. I do know that, everyone's interaction is going to be different depending on, who they're staying with, what the owners of the property are like. But this spot in particular, they were really cool and very nice. And the name of this place is the Rhinestone Ranch. If you want to check out Big Bend National Park, give it a visit, and you want a cheap place to camp out, I'd absolutely recommend staying here, giving them a look. So in comparing Hipcamp to Boondockers Welcome, it's kind of hard to compare the two just because their pricing structure is so different. Boondockers Welcome is just so cheap, $79 a year. That's really hard to beat. Basically, if you use it once, you've basically paid for your subscription. Whereas Hipcamp, you're paying for every day that you stay, like a typical RV park. The main difference, I would say, is that while Boondockers Welcome is going to be so much cheaper because your actual stay is free, but there's just not as many places to stay on Boondockers Welcome as there are on Hipcamp. Like I said, here especially, there wasn't a single option for Boondockers Welcome near Big Bend National Park, but there were tons of options on Hipcamp for paid camping. So it's really not a decision of which one should you choose. Obviously, it's just another resource out there in case you can't find anyone on Boondockers Welcome. We've basically used Boondockers Welcome in that we've used Harvest Host, but Boondockers Welcome has since bought out Harvest Host, and now it's all under the same umbrella. And when we would use Harvest Host, it was fantastic. You just roll on in and, let them know that you're going to stay there, and, you're a member of Harvest Host or Boondockers Welcome. At least we've only stayed at businesses like wineries and such like that. And so, just pulling on into a business is a little different than pulling on into someone's, private property. But it's definitely just another resource out there. If you haven't heard of Hipcamp, I'd definitely check it out. Look at their app. It's very easy to use. And we had never known about Hipcamp until we stumbled across it while trying so desperately to find a place to camp near Big Bend National Park. And one thing we love about this spot in particular, and the hosts that we're staying at in general, is that the site that they provide us is actually quite big because we're kind of staying to the side of what is sort of the entryway to their the driveway into their land. But they have 21 acres, and despite the fact that they've got a number of Airbnbs, they've got, I think, 3 RVs that they rent out on Airbnb, and then a few cabins. It's insanely quiet here. You've got enough space between you and the other Airbnbs, the other sites, that you really do feel like you're alone. It is dead quiet out here, and that's what we love, just the peacefulness of nature. And despite the fact that we're staying at what is essentially a private campground, you really have your own space, and it's fantastic because especially, we have 2 dogs, Sweetie and Juniper, and they both love to run. They love to play outside, and we just have plenty of space out here to do that. We get the Frisbee out constantly and play with that, toss the Frisbee really far. Juniper's a puppy still. She's 6 months old now, or almost 6 months. And so she's just full of energy, and she's just wanting to chase after things and play and romp around, and we have the space here to do that. It's amazing. And something we really appreciated that our hosts offered is that if we needed water or if we needed to dump, they have a ton of water that they have to essentially ship in here or go out and fill up. But they have like 1,000 gallons of water in this massive tank here, and they were willing to sell us water for like 25 cents a gallon, I believe, if we needed it. And they also offered that we could dump into their septic that they have here if we needed that as well for just $5. And so having those services here on site for relatively cheap was just good to know, even though, going into it, we already knew that we had plenty of fresh water and our holding tanks were plenty big, that we wouldn't need to utilize those services. But it's cool to know that I bet a lot of people on Hipcamp, and probably Boondockers Welcome as well, have or not necessarily hookups, but some sort of service that they can offer. And even if you need to like charge up your batteries or something, I seem to remember they offered that as well. If we had like a portable power station or something like that we needed to charge back up, we could just take it on over to their cabins that they have, plug it in, let it charge back up. And so yeah, they've been extremely hospitable here. And all in all, I would say that our experience has been extremely positive. It's been really nice having a really remote and secluded place to camp for extremely cheap. We know services are available if we need them, and we are super close to Big Bend National Park at only 30 minutes away. I am personally extremely happy about our experience here, and it's really good to know that that there's an app out there, a website, another resource for if we can't find other forms of camping that we prefer, which, like I said earlier, and you guys that have followed the channel know that we like to camp on BLM land or national forest where it's free, where we're actually out and secluded on our own. But, this really is the next best thing. And so I hope this video is really helpful for you guys. If you haven't heard about Hipcamp, I recommend you give it a try. And, I hope it was helpful to give you guys a new resource on your adventures. But again, my name's David. This is Fate Unbound. If you like the video, please consider subscribing. It really helped me out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
So let's run away to faraway places, escape from this life we have known. Your eyes are new worlds to discover. Your heart is the place I call home. Let's run away to faraway places. We'll make a new life of our own. Your eyes are new worlds to discover. Your heart is the place I call home.